Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. Episode 3 today will be about 10 underrated films that we all totally believe deserved a sequel. Be it full transparency, in the process of making our list of 10, we found we had probably around 50 or more. So we are now going to do this in multiple stages. This will just be our first episode doing this. So I hope you all enjoy the show, and let's jump right into it. Here we are.
Hey.
Good, everyone. So, for those of you who are somewhat new to the channel, or just the TCN in general, obviously I'm Taylor Murphy. I'm the founder, host, and everything in between. I got Michael Santel here to my left. Which direction are you?
Whatever. It's the internet. Who knows? I drink a lot of coffee and get roasted in the comments. That's who I am on this show.
And then below us, we got Jason, who is our video game editor, and he's going to be the host of the Pixel Sense podcast when we are ready to launch that bad boy. So we are, I think the only thing that hasn't happened yet is a trial run with the all the assets, but we have them all ready. We just need to sit down and do it.
Yes. We have to find the moment to get it rocking and rolling.
Yeah, and for those of you who are watching us and joining us live, you can clearly see that Jason's only getting his moment because he had to go away from his home in a car. So that is how today is going.
Jason, I thought you were also going to do your food blog for us live. Can you eat something right now? If you're in your car, I expect you to be eating something.
Oh, no, I already finished. I had 2 breakfast jacks and a hash brown. So
see, that's content, my friend. You're wasting good content.
Anyway, so to what we're here for. So today, like I said, Michael, we had this idea of kind of just like talking about movies that we 100% love, like our guilty pleasure movies, the ones that we were like, why didn't we get a sequel? And a lot of these turned into like cult favorite movies. They kind of bombed in the box office for whatever reason. Maybe they were ahead of their time. Maybe just it was just a weird time for theaters. But we, and
unfortunately, audience, our biases are going to show as we put these movies in chronological order. I'm just like looking at a timeline of my childhood. So
yeah,
I'm excited as we bring this idea. What we mean by sequels is a continuation of that universe and the things that
specific
get set
story.
Up. Yeah.
The
specific things that were set up there as a jumping off point for more stuff. Now, some of these movies are probably 20 or 30 years old at this point, so maybe we have to have new casts. Maybe
the oldest is 35.
Okay, so, yes. Great. All of that is par for the course, but these are worlds we feel should get another shot in them.
Yeah, and whether that means that the movies that are on the older side get a full remake, but to me, when I say a full remake, I mean a 1-for-1 remake just with today's technology. Like certain movies were so good, the only limitation was the special effects and the technology of the time. So we'll that's kind of what it is. I mean, we're going to go into it and we'll explain why we love these movies and why they were kind of just what they were. And without further ado, obviously, some of these movies are on the older side. They 100% will have spoilers because we're going to gush about these movies. And if you haven't seen the movie, I'm sorry ahead of time, but there will be some spoilers.
Spoiler. If you haven't seen the movie, you're gonna have to skip ahead. If you're listening to this after the fact, go to the next movie. But if you're watching this live, I don't know, maybe you dip out because we're gonna have to talk about these films and basically why we love them. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to talk about some big plot points.
Yeah, and that's what's gonna happen. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right into our list. And we're getting comments, like people are popping in as we're doing this. So, Michael, I'm going to let you see the comments and all that. I'll pop into them and bring them up on screen when we get them. We got some good mornings, happy Saturdays, and hello. So right off the bat, all right. The first movie that I wanted to bring up, and you guys gave me a laugh about this when I threw this on the screen when we were running the prep, but I don't care. Masters of the Universe from 1987. This movie was actually made by the Cannon Group and Warner Brothers Pictures back in the day. This was a movie that came out when I was born. So I grew up with it, and I was a huge He-Man Master Universe fan as a kid. The cartoon was my jam. And this movie it's kind of an unsung. It's a weird movie. It's all. I think it was also, was it Courtney Cox's first movie? Was that also a thing?
I don't
Yeah.
know. She was doing those music videos, and I think she did that. She was running
Yeah,
around all over
yeah.
the place in the 80s.
Anyways, Master of the Universe was such a weird movie. I picked it up on Blu-ray. I found it somewhere. Where was it? I found it on Blu-ray, and I sat down with my son and watched it. And it's a weird movie. From the get-go, it starts off with like Eternia being like overrun by Skeletor and an army. Like, it's not like the original show where Skeletor's got like his ragtag group. He had like a legitimate Star Wars-esque stormtrooper army and was like running rampant and just capturing people out like everywhere. And I'm like, this movie is different. Okay. Some of the designs for this movie were way ahead of their time. Skeletor's look in this movie by Frank Langella, amazing. And as a part of the plot point, there was this little wizard guy who made this like temporal universe distortion device that sang this music, and it was like da, 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 and like it did this like laser light show thing, and it basically pulled characters into that world into our world. So it was like this very much He-Man and his group are now in the 80s, right?
Sure.
And it was so weird. But I was watching it with my son, and I'm just like, if they would have remade this movie today with today's technology, this movie would be a major banger. Like, this was so fun. It was just such a weird time because all their ideas were further than their capability.
Sure.
Right. And I loved it. I loved it so much. And then like the end of the movie, the third act, right? So part of the thing is that the device gets broken, they get stuck in the 80s, they get stolen, all this stuff. They end up getting this guy who, like this musician kind of guy, who's able to synthesize the musical tones that open up the portal on his keyboard, and they wired his keyboard into the machine that they jerry-rigged like a bunch of like Back to the Future-esque style like erector set stuff, and they ripped back into that universe and took like a city block with them. So there was like a car, a fire hydrant, and like a cop and some other people that got pulled into the world with them. And the final, like, while He-Man was gone, essentially Skeletor had taken over Eternia. And it was almost like this, like in Lord of the Rings, the Scourging of the Shire. Like, they get home and everything's on fire, and they're like, "Oh no, it's so much worse than we thought." And He-Man gets captured, and Skeletor gets the sword of power, and he actually becomes the Skelegod. Like what we now know from the Kevin Smith, like he has the power, he's taken the power. Skeletor had it and became a god. And it was like this really gnarly, like golden armor, and had this like crazy Sauron-looking headdress,
and stuff like that.
And he wasn't able to fully. I just pulled something off my earpiece. Anyways, he wasn't able to fully grasp it. So He-Man takes the sword, does the "I have the power" thing, and then they have this like crazy battle against each other, and Skeletor dies. Right, like he falls down the pits in the Castle of Grayskull, and just falls to his doom. And they're like, "Hey, we saved the world. Let's send you home." And it was like happy-go-lucky. And then one of the first movies that I can think of that ever had a post-credit scene, there was a post-credit scene where you go down the pit and there's all this water, and Skeletor pops up saying, "I'm coming back for you." And like you knew that, like, okay, he's coming back. He's pissed. Let's do this. Sequel time. Never had a sequel.
No. I believe the company went belly up bankrupt after that movie as well. I think that was the
Canon Pictures, I believe, went belly up. Most of the sequel ideas that they had for this movie got folded into the movie Cyborg, the one with Jean-Claude Van Damme, which is kind of weird. But if you like watch that movie, you're like, okay, this could have been a He-Man movie, right? Like, it's weird, but it worked. And there was also like this pitch idea where He-Man ends up coming back to like our world and everything, and like disguises himself as a football player so he can like track down something. Like they had so many off the wall ideas, but I would have loved just a straight He-Man versus Skeletor in Eternia. And they set it up, and we never got it.
He-Man would murder a football team. If we saw a scene of He-Man running into people, he'd be murdering all of those people.
In my mind, I think of that scene from Starship Troopers when they're doing football, and like Rico's like running and there's like a front flip over the other players, and I'm like, how is that a thing? like that's just that's what I imagine with He-Man doing it. Like, I'm trying not to hurt anybody, but let me just front flip sideways and do something absolutely insane.
Now, Taylor, when did you only see this movie with your kid not that long ago? Because when I was a kid,
I grew up with this movie.
Okay, this was a Channel 9 or Channel 13, the worst of the local channels, FYI.
Yeah,
this
like
was
UPN or something when we were kids, right?
This was like 2:00 on a Sunday, and you kind of watched it. For years, I thought this movie was a fever dream. I didn't know this movie actually existed. I remembered the dwarf guy running around and having a high voice and doing stuff. I didn't know that was actually a movie. So to see it now get praised and to have a Blu-ray release where they, make everything look good,
right?
I'm glad that the movie is out there in the world.
It was, but I was watching it, and I'm just like, it's one of those movies where you listen to the dialogue and you listen to the plot points, and you're like, this could have been an amazing film if it had a better budget. Like, that's how it 100% felt. Like the ideas were ahead of its time.
And also, it's crazy to think back in hindsight that whoever owned He-Man, Mattel, whichever one was the company that owned it, that they didn't put $10 million to make this commercial for your toy amazing. They kind of let it die on the vine, and I feel like it made He-Man die. He-Man's now getting love, but for a long time, He-Man was kind of a joke.
Yeah, and like, I honestly believe, because every time they talked about, let's make a He-Man movie, I always felt like the best callback they could have done would have Dolph Lundgren, who played He-Man in this movie, play King Randor. Like, that would have been like the dream casting for me. Like, He-Man's dad is the old He-Man, and he's still jacked because he's insane. Because Dolph Lundgren, everything I read about him as a person makes me love him even more. Like, he is the crazy bad guy from Rocky IV, but he also has 4 master's degrees and is like a super scientist. And I'm like, this guy is a chemical engineer.
Yeah, he's the Punisher.
Yeah, and but he is also it was funny because there's a meme that you can Google Dolph Lundgren versus Bill Nye the Science Guy, and they're like, Bill Nye is just an engineer or whatever, just like a mechanical engineer, and then Dolph Lundgren is like boom, 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 but like all his degrees, and I'm like, he is stacked. He's amazing. Not only is he 6'5" and 500 pounds of pure muscle, he's got a brain to match that. Like, it's insane.
Taylor, we'll do our best to see if Dolph Lundgren will get on the internet with us.
I hope so. He is insane.
Any parting thoughts on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe?
Yeah, let's migrate to the next one. I would have wanted a sequel. Again, for anyone who wants to watch it, you can find it somewhere. I'm not sure what streaming service it's on now, but even if you get weirded out by the whole premise, Frank Langella as Skeletor, the makeup just alone, the design, throw it up again, so good. He was so good as Skeletor. Mm-hmm. And just those two characters in general, they were so fantastic together. Like, they had such a cool dynamic between the two of them. Some of the B characters, some of like Tila, Man at Arms, not so much. These two, however, were amazing.
They're the A talent. They're the A talent for a reason. They carry.
And I think there was even an interview with Frank Langella recently where he said that was the 100% the biggest, his favorite movie because it gave him the most freedom. Like, he was allowed to be who he wanted to be from the start, and he will always quote Masters of the Universe as his favorite acting role, which to me is insane because he's done some great work.
He's done great work, but very rarely are you ever given the chance as a performer to just do whatever you want, go to town. And what's funny is I bet his over-the-top acting actually reads through the makeup. You can actually see that this guy is emoting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A side point, I was watching the actor who played Davy Jones in Pirates. They were showing behind-the-scenes stuff about him. Doing crazy over-the-top stuff. Just like a madman. But when you put a pound of CG over him, it works. It sells that character. It makes him feel alive. So maybe there's something to be said there about those over-the-top performances.
All right, so on to our next movie. This was one that you brought to the table because I totally forgot about it, but I also loved it so much as a kid too. And I think we watched it at your house on VHS a few times with your dad because he loved it too.
We
Tracy.
Had it. We had it on a VHS. We had recorded it off the Disney Channel in 1992. We didn't have the first 5 minutes of the movie, so I only recently saw that.
I remember that too because I remember when I was looking at this movie on the list, I'm like, how did the movie start? Because I just remember jumping right into a car chase. I'm like, is there something before that?
He follows that big goon-looking dude from Sin City to the house where he's eating the chicken, and then he beats him up.
Right. So for those who are unaware, Dick Tracy is an old serial cartoon, old serial comic strip. And the Dick Tracy movie, I like to compare this movie to kind of like what they did with not so much like Sin City, but kind of like Speed Racer to me, right?
Yes.
Where
yes.
the project is so weird and so over the top that they did like a 1-to-1 adaptation. And mind you, it was weird and over the top.
There's a great video guy online that does a great deep dive into this movie, but here's some of the highlights. Warren Beatty took all of his might in Hollywood and brought all of these amazing people, cinematographer, lighting, all of this great stuff into this movie. And for whatever reason, that magic just doesn't translate well to this. Is it a kid's movie? Who's the movie for? There is a kid character in it, but then Madonna. You guys, Madonna is so sexy. She's walking around in see-through outfits, and as a kid, you're like, is this for me? It is for you because Madonna's in it. I feel I want this movie to be released from the constraints that it is under. Now, Taylor, do you know who has the rights to Dick Tracy?
No, and that's the problem.
I'm going to let you know right now.
This movie was made without them having the rights, from my understanding. That's why it got like blacklisted, is that they made this movie, Warren Beatty made this movie with some like handshake permission or something. I'm not sure the whole story behind it, but the moment it came out, there was this giant legal battle of who actually owned it. And they've never been able to make a sequel since because Disney made it, Buena Vista Pictures made it, but like the people who own the character, I'm just gonna throw this on the screen. This is how the cast looked. Right?
Look how crazy that is. Look at those makeup. Look at those characters. Listen, Al Pacino does a very classic Al Pacino in that movie. He's going around going, Tracy, Tracy. I mean, he's doing all of the stuff you want Al Pacino to do. There are so many great actors and so many great mob actors. Let's get these guys in some fun makeup and see what they can do with it. So from my understanding, Warren Beatty was able to get the rights, enough so, but those rights were going to go away. So about a decade ago, he filmed a 30-minute special with Leonard Maltin that only showed once on Turner Classic Movies, where Dick Tracy sat down with Leonard Maltin and just had a conversation. That was able to secure him to continue having the rights to Dick Tracy. So, Warren Beatty, I know you want to come back as an old man Dick Tracy. It's not going to happen. Please,
I wanted to, though.
Let the character go. Let us reimagine it. Let us continue on. I think we need a new cast. I think we need new people to play those characters. But like you said, there was so much stuff. This is like a colorful Sin City. And I think in the past, they didn't know. I feel like they were afraid to bring that to an audience. And I feel like now it's like, no, we've been set for a long time with noir, with detective stories, and to have like a fun detective, like really give Dick Tracy something. You know, he's the world's greatest detective. That's what they say. I would love to see that city and that world be flushed out and just pick off where the last one left off.
Yeah, you could reboot it. You could redo it 100%. And I mean, a lot of people will probably compare it to Sin City or The Spirit, which is like over the top, but that's kind of what the source material was at the time. It was a pulpy cinema reel kind of this was the character. He had his cell phone watch, which I also have. And I even make that reference to you. I think last time you called me, I answered on my watch. I'm like, hey, I'm talking to you on my wrist like I'm Dick Tracy. And that's how we started the conversation because it was so ingrained in our childhoods. But
Dick Tracy he was almost a superhero. He was a detective superhero, kind of, right? He wasn't a superhero, but he kind of was. Also, you know, you compared it to those other films. I think it's different enough. Sin City is the other half of the coin, but this movie is way more watchable than The Spirit. And when you watch a movie like The Spirit, you can see how many things they took from this movie directly, even though this is kind of a forgotten gem. So I would like to see Dick Tracy back in the world again.
Me too. I think it's time. It's like 30 years overdue. So
we don't have to do the songs anymore. We can remove all of that stuff. I just feel like I want to see, you know what? Here's the start. I'll even pitch it to you. Dick Tracy gets set up. He goes into jail, and we see Dick Tracy become like the kingpin of a jail. He's got to fight his way out of there, or something like that. Maybe that's the first act, but like that world is so fun. I would love to give some great character actors some makeup and see what they can do with that stuff.
A Dick Tracy Hulu series would be pretty cool.
That'd be fun. I like this comment right here. As a kid, my dad found Dick Tracy and Burton's Batman equally as cartoony as each other and thought they were in the same world. That actually, the way I think about it, like they did have similar vibes with their set. Just one was obviously way more colorful than the other, but you could have rationalized that they were in the same world, just decades apart. I can believe that.
Yeah, and I also wonder if we're just also talking about old Hollywood. The fact that you walk around, you see those behind the scenes sections of like Batman Returns, and it's like, oh, they built all of that Gotham. That was a full set with those fake statues and stuff like that they could go walk around on. And now all that stuff would be CG. So I wonder if that cartoony is because also it was painted by somebody.
Yeah. And that's actually how my family got in the business. I'm pretty sure one of my family members worked on this film because they were set painters for Warner Brothers. No, not this one. The other one that was by Warner Brothers. They probably worked on He-Man, to be honest. So.
All right, Taylor, continue the timeline of our childhood.
Next one, you brought to the table, but I also had it on my list. I'm like, oh my God, we're twinsies, because this was something that we both 100% loved. The Rocketeer by Disney. Now, this movie 100% felt like it was like on the cusp of being an Indiana Jones movie with a dude in a jetpack. Like it was just everything that you wanted. Bad guys were Nazis, Hollywood conspiracies. Howard Hughes was a character. Like it was 100% like a 1920s pulpy like exaggeration of the past, and I loved it as a kid.
Everything you just touched upon. It was a little Indiana Jones. It was a little James Bondy. It was a little bit out there, and in fact, I like the aesthetics of the movie. I like the painted backgrounds. In fact, if they were to do another Rocketeer, I would love them to do it in the style with the miniatures, with the painted backgrounds and stuff like that. All of that stuff was great. I just want more of it. I want to see somebody break it. I want to see him put the thing, fly up into it under a hovering base or something like that. It's so much bigger than the world than what we got. We got such a little taste of it. I would love to see this exported out there and see what it looks like.
Right. And I don't know why it failed. I don't know what happened with it. And from my understanding, the budget was like 40 million and they made only about 45 million. Like they barely made their money back, which was such a bummer. But the fact that you brought it up, like a little bit James Bond was the freaking bad guy in this movie. Timothy Dalton was such an amazing villain because he was like this suave actor. Then you're like, oh wait, he's a Nazi. What the heck? And like, it was such a cool movie. And I don't know. I don't know why it failed. Like, I really don't, because like I had such fond memories of this as a kid. I don't know.
I think the weekend it came out and was pretty popular. I think there was a lot of popular movies that came out during that weekend. And possibly. I think it just got.
But can we also talk about how this movie, I'm pretty sure for you, Michael, same with me, started my lifelong like love affair of Jennifer Connelly as a human being. Like the moment I saw her on that film, I'm like, I've got a crush for life. I like girls now. This is it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
the whole timeline, because you grow up with her. You watch her in Labyrinth when you're a little kid. She's like, that's my friend Sarah. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, me and Sarah are
Jennifer Connelly.
We want to date each other.
Yeah. And then like, I think you like broke me a little bit. Like when we were in high school, you showed me Requiem from a Dream. And I'm like, I can't handle my life anymore. Because that was too much for me. Like,
it's an intense watch.
This movie also starts my love affair. As a little kid, I didn't know who Ed Arkin was, but now he was so good. Yeah. He's the guy in Edward Scissorhands. He's so funny. He's such a great, lively part of this movie. Maybe it was something in the water. Maybe it just wasn't what 1992 or 1991 audiences were into. But I love the pictures of it. I love the way that it looks. We don't get it into a war. That was the point of the movie. We kept it out of the hands of the bad guys. But I would love to see more adventuring with the rocket pack suit. It was such a great idea.
And mind you, there's talks that there is going to be a spiritual sequel with Cliff coming back, like the actual actor is Cliff coming back in set in this like 1940s or 1950s, kind of a like 30 years later kind of a thing. And he's giving like he's going to be the mentor now for the new person with the suit. Like there's all these talks about it. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but
Everything
I wanted
you just
more.
told me is not the movie I want.
It's not what I want.
None of that. The suit is existing. This needs to be like a Captain America movie. It needs to not be any of that.
Yeah, 100%. I want it to be exactly what I want it to be, and that is Rocketeer, an ace pilot fighting Nazis. Give me that movie again.
You guys aren't feeling the animated CG reboot that they have on Disney Junior?
You mean that little kid one where the girl's in like a pink Rocketeer outfit and she's flying around saving the day? No, I don't want that.
Yeah, isn't that like Grandpa Cliff or something that gives her the backpack or something?
Nope, I don't want it. It's not real to me.
I'm fine with that, but it doesn't make sense that the family would just have this thing. No, Howard Hughes took it away, and then he gives him an airplane.
Michael, you sound like you're getting lost in Tron.
I guess, bro, we haven't even got to that one yet. Shh, no spoilers.
Yeah, it's on the list.
It's on the list.
All right. Yeah, honestly, go to the next one, because this one I think is going to be a fun one, because you brought this to the table, and I was immediately like, yeah, this deserved even more. Demolition Man, 1993 by WB. For those of you who have not seen Demolition Man, it is a gem. It is so weird. It became a cult favorite as soon as like within like years of it. Like people are like, oh, it sucked in theaters, but then like everyone's like, but it was amazing. Let me tell you why. It is so exaggerated.
Did you really? What was the vibe like in the room? Were people excited for it? Was it too weird?
This movie was amazing in theaters, dude. Like I was mind blown as a kid seeing this. This was just like next level, like rated R. I'm 12. I'm watching this. This was just amazing.
It's so weird. Everything about the movie I love, and like I loved the fact that it was like he was like a cop that just went too far, so they imprisoned him and they froze him, and then a bad guy who was equally crazy. This like utopian society, and this bad guy was like, let's bring back the worst serial killer of our time, and let's jack his brain full of new skills and technology, and like let's just make him even more insane. And the movie is just ridiculous. It's so good, so over the top. Wesley Snipes, one of his best movies, and I will fight people. Like I know, like people like put Blade as his number one. I will put Demolition Man as his number one because this movie is amazing.
He steals the show. If you want to know why he's a star, he gives great performances, but like he's up against Sylvester Stallone, who also gives a really good performance. Does a great Stallone. This is one of the classic like Stallone being the guy. You know what I mean? And a way more fun way than Arnold, because Arnold could not have done this movie. This is a Stallone movie, and also Sandra Bullock. Just classic 90s Sandra Bullock. She's right before Speed and she takes off, but it's such a great idea for a world. And what's funny is some of the movie makes some wild accusations about the future. It gets a lot of things wrong. But like, in the world we live in today where mega corporations eat each other up, I could absolutely see Taco Bell being the one that survives at the very end. You know what I mean? Like this very silly joke of the movie. And today it's like, oh, well, it's a Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC. Yeah. Isn't that, you know what I mean? Throw a McDonald's in there. They win. So
yeah,
I would love to see, the society was in balance. They got to bring, spoiler territory. They got to bring the sewer people. They got to bring Dennis Leary up from the underground. Dennis Leary would come back in a heartbeat, make him the new mayor of the city. And they're like, we got to unfreeze another person. The uploading of skills while you're frozen feels very Matrixy. I mean, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, what is his name? It's not Sid Vicious. Oh, that's another movie for another list.
Put it on the list. Put it on the list.
No, that's I'll put it for I just have to write it down while I remember it. We're not talking virtuosity, but this movie has all of those great things, and it's a fun world. I don't even know what you would do to bring it back. or what that idea would be. But the idea that you're freezing and unfreezing criminals is a really fun idea. And I would love to see them play with that idea some more.
Yeah, 100%. And I just got to like again remind like one of my favorite running jokes from the internet. And I know Jason will know this. A lot of video games throw this joke in there is the 3 seashells, and nobody knows what they do or how they work. They're like, oh, they're the seashell, and he's like, what is this? I don't understand this. And I'm like, even now, I'm like, I don't know, I don't get it either, but it's provocative, and I need to know. So, anyways, next movie on the list. Now we're getting to the territory where people start recognizing these even more. It's not like their childhood. This is more like, for us, it was like middle school. Spawn.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I know that every couple years they talk about this, and maybe it's going to come back or maybe it won't, and all the different problems. Spawn's got to come back. Spawn was one of the guys who did it first. This movie tried to do as much as it could with the limitations of 1997. I know that we go back and laugh at it today, and that's okay. I think they didn't know what tone they wanted, but Spawn is such a great character that you can plug into any time period. If we want to see Spawn with a sword arm in middle age times, great. Like tone, you can really do so much with this character. I just feel like Spawn has been forgotten to time and should be front and center. You like a Spider-Man guy? Guess what? Spawn can do that, no problem. You like a magic cape from Doctor Strange? I got a demon cape for you that is amazing. So like
that could be the size of a skyscraper because that's what the visuals require.
Oh, the visuals are so anime, and I feel like now that movies like Battle Angel have come out, you know what I mean, and other sort of animated ideas have been brought. I just feel like we got to see Spawn in a bigger glory. I feel like they made Spawn a G.I. Joe character in that movie. He's got a gun. He does some stuff. We need to Spawn with chains, just grabbing people and being a demonic horror. And I think it's, it is time for Spawn to return.
Yeah. But so I watched this. My son went down this rabbit hole where he's like, I want to watch all these old comic movies that you grew up with. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. He put Spawn on the other day. There were definitely some weird, laughable things about this movie.
Yeah.
Like I love this movie, but the fact that there was this like super secret government mercenary group that's like very public and super rich, I was like, this is weird. Okay. I'm not sure what they're trying to like. Okay, let's go with this. They're holding a gala where everyone is like a $10 million buy-in. Now this is weird. And there's bad guys and good guys and no one's stopping each other. Like it was such a weirdly exaggeration of like 90s politics. But I was just like, I'm okay with this. This movie's ridiculous. Definitely CGI was not up to par. The final battle between Spawn and Malbolgia in hell was super weird. But 100% just like He-Man, like the special effects did not match with their ambition. They could 100% be remade with the exact same script and it would be amazing.
And I want people to, and that's part of also one of this reasons why is I feel like people like, oh, well, that's what Spawn is. Spawn's not good. It's like, no. Spawn is books and books of content. This is just what they tried to distill it down to. Yeah. And McFarlane hates the studios and has been, you know what I mean, has not wanted to do anything.
I know that he's been trying to make a reboot. He got Jamie Foxx involved to play him, and everything was like cool, and then just it's been stuck in development hell.
I remember the first time I saw the HBO Spawn was when we were in Utah in high school, Taylor, at your cousin's house. That was the first time I saw that. And there was so much darkness to that world that I was like, man, you can go any different direction with this character, but it's time for him to be brought back to the silver screens.
Yeah, I remember that because we were in one of my family members' basements, and his cousin like brought my uncle. His friend gave us all the DVDs, and you were like, I'm just going to sit down and watch these. And I'm like upstairs with my family eating breakfast, and you're downstairs like wrapped up in a blanket like, this is so dark.
I watched Spawn. I watched Dr. Strangelove. There was just this pile of movies that we did not have access to, and I was like, I got to watch these while I have access to them.
Yeah, because like my uncle's friend was like super rich, and like his movie collection was more than the Blockbuster had. And like you were like, oh my God. And you just grabbed things.
We were in the middle of Utah. It was a very nice basement. For everyone who's thinking it was a dingy basement, it was a very nice basement.
No. So, to put it in perspective, when my grandparents sold this house, they sold it for 1.5 million. It was a nice house.
Yeah, it was a really nice house.
So it was not a dingy little like rickety basement. Like he hung out in this like 20-foot by 30-foot movie theater they built down there. Like you're just hanging out watching it on the big screen. Like it was fun.
And all the Taco Bell I wanted and all the Spawn cartoons I could watch.
Yep. Anyways, all right. So next movie. Now we're gonna jump literally a decade. Hellboy. Specifically, Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, 100% needed a sequel. For whatever crazy reason, we never got Hellboy 3. And apparently Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro still want to make it, but the studio decided to reboot it, and that failed. But I want Hellboy 3. I want it to have happened already because they even teased us with what the story was about. And then it went nowhere for like another 10 years.
Yeah, and I feel bad that I don't have anything nice to say about that Hellboy we got a couple years ago. It's really all over the place and hot garbage. And it was so sad. And I was like, there's some like great Hellboy stuff in that movie, but overall it's just awful. And Guillermo del Toro is one of the most talented directors of his generation. Please let him finish off this story. Please let Ron Perlman do something. You know, I feel like this is another movie that has been constrained by budget and time, and I just feel like let them put their trilogy to rest because they did some really great stuff in there, and a lot of comic book movies have been copying a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and from what we understand about the third movie was that the whole plot was supposed to revolve around the twins. One was supposed to be basically like an angel. One was supposed to be like a demon, like the Antichrist and like the Savior kind of a thing. Like the twins were going to be a center point of the thing. Rasputin from the first movie was going to come back, and it was going to mix like the religious stuff of the first movie and the magical weird stuff of the second movie into this capping send off for the trilogy. We never got it.
And the sad part about it was it's not like Guillermo del Toro then went and, shit the bed. No, he went on and made a bunch of really amazing films. He went and made Pan's Labyrinth. He went and made the movie from this year, which I've been telling everybody watch.
I know. I'll watch it later.
The Carney movie. The Carney movie. Yeah. It's so good. The Devil's Backbone.
And he made was it Crimson Peak? Was that the one with Tom Hiddleston? That movie, I watched that. I'm like, this is creepy, and I'm like genuinely creeped out about life right now. Like it was such a like the ghosts in that movie. Del Toro just like creeped me out for a decade.
Crimson Peak narratively doesn't resonate with me as much as the other movies, but even that movie, which I have things that I could pick apart, the visuals of that movie are next level. And in terms of a ghost movie, there's not a lot of really great ghost movies out there, and that movie is got to be in the top 10. It does some really great scary stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see it. I want it to happen. It should have happened already. Ron Perlman's getting older, and the more they wait, the less likely it'll happen.
He's getting a lot older.
Yeah.
Yeah, he now plays old man gangsters in movies. He was the old man gangster in Drive. Like, we only got so many years with him. Whatever Hellboy's got to do, Hellboy's going to be in retirement. You know what I mean? And then we're just seeing a lot of CG Hellboy, which is what the last movie was. So it was like, why not bring Ron Perlman back?
Like, and I'll say, like, for the last movie, for the reboot, David Harbour as Hellboy, he was fantastic in the role. I'll say that. My biggest gripe with the movie was I didn't know what decade it took place in, because this passage of time that they showed in that movie made zero sense.
Sure.
I loved the fact that they, with the comic book accurate backstory for him, with like the son of the devil and the mother was a human and he's like the descendant of King Arthur. Like that's actually from the comics, and that was what I was missing from the original movies. Aside from that, everything else was just like a poop fest. So
yeah, very poorly written.
They had some great moments, just like it was like some couple diamonds throughout that movie, just with shit all around them. It was so frustrating.
This has happened a couple of times now, and it just happened when I watched the new Uncharted movie. This is the script you turned in. Just copy what the other guy did before you. Just literally copy the thing that everybody likes. Go read it and then bring it to us. It was the same thing
don't
here.
reinvent the wheel. The wheel's fine.
Right. You have books and books of the original creator who came up with these concepts. Just go and spiritually go and get that stuff. It makes me so sad when that due diligence can't be, and they're like, oh no, there's a wolf guy. Okay, hold on. We could do it like this. And it's like, man, that doesn't feel like the tone at all of what people love about Hellboy.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get sad anymore, let's go to another movie.
Yeah.
And I brought this to you and I had arguments about this movie when we first saw it.
I think
when
this is all. Yeah, I think so. What movie is this?
Tron Legacy.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Obviously, I'm sporting my Flynn Lives t-shirt. I love the original Tron, and I know you did too, because we watched the crap out of it when we were kids. And you were always, as a kid, like, why did they make another one? Where's the next one? And then when they finally gave us Tron Legacy, you nitpicked the crap out of it.
I drank the haterade. I had a lot of problems with it. Every scene was not something I've wanted to. I have revisited it since then, and if you get into the world of it, it's really fun.
Yeah.
You give your movie love. Give your movie love.
So I loved it. Daft Punk soundtrack was gorgeous. The weirdness of this new version of the grid, I loved. I loved the plot points of the ISOs, the AI that sprung out of this world, and Jeff Bridges' whole Zen look at the universe, because he like packed all of his Buddhist philosophy into this movie, and I loved it. I thought it was way ahead of its time, and people who watch it now can just. It's one of those movies that I don't know why Disney hasn't given me a 4K transfer of this thing. I want it in 4K, and I want to watch it again on the biggest screen humanly possible, because it was so cool.
Yeah, I think the relationship with the son, and his angst carrying throughout the film, wanting to find out about his father, that was a very relatable. Not necessarily to me, preferably, but like that's such a relatable story that it really carries through the movie. And then when you meet Flynn and later on in the movie, and he's all old and withered, and you really do feel sad for him, because he kind of got stuck in his own creation, and when his best creation was living right in front of him. Being a father myself, it's very touching. It does make me quite emotional.
Yeah. And I think maybe the special effects of the time just weren't the best, because like obviously one of the main characters of the movie was Clue, which was a digital copy of Flynn and meant to be de-aged 30 years. And obviously, like if you want to Google something amazing, just Google Tron Legacy deepfake, and this guy just deepfaked all the Clue scenes with minimal effort, and it's like photo real. It's perfect. I'm like, I want them to 4K remaster Tron Legacy and give us the deepfake guy to like clean up the Clue scenes. But they set up a sequel. They even in the special effects and the special features of the Blu-ray, they touched base on this tiny Easter egg, not like the very outspoken Easter egg at the very beginning of the film, with Edward Dillinger Jr. being a character on the board of ENCOM. And then at the end of the movie, they could have put the scene as like an end credit scene, but they didn't, and it probably would have sparked up more desire. But they had this sequence where Dillinger is like chatting with his dad, essentially, like in an IM session, and his dad is like, "All right, our next phase of our plan is going to come out, and they will not know it's coming." And then like the MCP gets name dropped, and you're like, "He's bringing back the MCP," and then like they just didn't do it.
Okay. I'm listening to both. I'm listening to things that you say. I do like the choices in the movie. I think that I didn't like that this film relied on conventions of other filmmakers before it. That you have this great world, and I wanted more Tron. I wanted more of this world's rules, where in the third act, when he's the gunner on a ship, it's like, well, that's how all of my childhood movies end. Luke and Han Solo go into the thing, and then they start shooting. I just felt like you have this great digital world. I would love to see them use content and things like that that are true in our digital worlds, and see that be brought into that reality. Maybe I definitely, it's funny, is I forgot about the whole young Jeff Bridges in that movie. I forgot all about that. And you're right. They were trying to do something. But even now, it's real hit or miss. And Disney is the only one really pushing this deep fake technology in their multi-million-dollar movies. So, every year it gets a little bit better. I think Tron is a great world that they haven't, there is still so much to be had there. And I think that whether we finish the Flynn trilogy, or whether we take those ideas and see other people that are living inside that universe, I'm just ready to hop back into it. Daft Punk is not going to come back, but you have a plethora of EDM artists that could give you a banger of a soundtrack. So while I have individual issues, I would love for the Tron universe to be alive. I mean, the last Tron thing we got was that ride that I haven't been on. There's a Tron ride. It's supposed to be very good.
Well, it's because it's in like China, but they have one in Florida now.
They have one in Florida. Yeah. So it's good enough for us.
So we know that they're trying to make another Tron movie, but it's sort of a side sequel where it's like going to continue the world, but it's separate. Jared Leto is going to be playing a program by the name of Ares, and I don't know.
So sad. I don't want Jared Leto anymore.
Like, to me, he's good in some roles, right? He's very, very much a roller coaster of an actor where he has he's not quite Nick Cage yet, but he's on his way to becoming the Nick Cage of this generation, where he'll make a glorious movie and then a crap movie, and he'll just jump back and forth. Like,
Nick Cage is only as good as his director, and maybe Jared Leto is the same way. If that is the case, you got to get a great director in there. You got to give somebody that will give him notes, because if not, he is just going to do whatever he wants to and will ruin your movie. Listen, Blade Runner 2049, he's good in. Why? That's a great director. Morbius, not a good movie. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that director, but that movie was not good.
All right. But I think some of the comments and you brought up, one of the biggest things about Legacy that was a bit of a bummer was obviously the character of Tron was he was more a bad guy for most of the movie as a silent Rinsler. And then finally, when he became himself at the end of the movie and saved the day, you have this moment where he's falling into the ocean and resetting and rebooting and becoming Tron again. And then you never picked up that string. You never saw him. It would have been cool if the moment at the end of the movie where Clue shows up to attack them, Tron came back and started defending him. That would have been a cool payoff, but
and we also just live in a world where we have Avatar. I don't want a one-to-one of you make a Tron movie that feels like a Fortnite movie. That's not what I'm saying. But those type of conventions in video games are now accepted. Let us see them. Why wasn't there a first-person shooter sequence in those games? Why wasn't there a scene where they're flicking AI programs? There's all of these type of things that are conventions in video games that doesn't translate to other movies. And it's Tron is a universe built for all of those things, but we're feel constrained for some reason. And I just want that whole world to get flushed out more.
Yeah. And I want more of it. It should have happened. And I don't want to wait 30 years for another one, but it may happen.
Yeah. True.
That'll be the legacy of Tron, is that every 30 years we get a new Tron movie. That's what it's going to turn out to be, and I don't want that.
Sure.
All right, so let's jump into our next movie. This movie that came out in 2012, which I personally loved, but I think word of mouth destroyed the movie because most people didn't understand, or maybe it was a marketing, because I think maybe people didn't even know what the hell the movie was. John Carter. I feel like this movie suffered for awkward titling. If they would have just named it John Carter of Mars and named it after the book, or it said John Carter, semicolon, the Princess of Mars, and kind of told you what this movie was, it probably would have been better received. But
yeah, my sister and her children, they're a big space family. They love this movie and are always telling me. I don't even think I saw it. I will let you know. My issue with this movie is that it was one of 5 movies during that time where a blonde, beautiful man fights something in a deserty background.
Well, he's got brown hair, so you messed that up.
Okay, see, even that I didn't even look hard enough. But I feel like there was the Lone Ranger movie. Did they do the Lone Ranger movie?
Yeah, that was like their fail right after this one. Another movie
Okay.
that was also much better than people give it credit for, but it was like riddled in controversy because it was kind of racist.
Yeah, well, listen, the Old West, I mean, America's kind of racist, so anything
Yeah.
that's happening to
Well, that's what I'm
I'm
saying. Like,
sorry, everybody.
the movie was accurate, but racism isn't nice in general,
Yes,
so people didn't
that's
like it.
that's very true. I absolutely think that, I do short form improv, and one of the things you have to do is tell your audience who we are and what they're about to see. And I feel like John Carter just never conveyed what it was. I think if people knew it was like an Avatar movie, because it's kind of an Avatar movie, right? A guy goes
yeah.
to some aliens and then learns how to live with the aliens and they save each other. None of that stuff was shown in the trailer.
I think people, a lot of criticism that people had with this movie was that, like, oh, I've seen that in Star Wars, I've seen that in this movie, I've seen that in this movie. But Edgar Rice Burroughs made this movie like 100 years ago.
Right.
He made the story like 100. Like the story is like the blueprint for everything else science fiction that we had in the last 100 years. And obviously, some things like George Lucas said that John Carter was a big inspiration for him. Like Dune was inspired by this, but the whole story was so ahead of its time that when we finally got it, people said it's too familiar, it doesn't work. But that's because that's the source material. That's what it was. The story itself is about a soldier. I think he was probably part of the Civil War. He was like a Confederate and said, "I'm done with this crap. I don't like your politics." He basically like went off on his own. His wife got killed, and he became like a drunk combatant kind of a guy. He just hates everything. And in the process of him trying to like get away from COs that are after him, he gets sucked into. He finds this cave, this treasure, and it throws his like soul into another body that it made for him on Mars. Like it copied him. So there's a body of his on Mars and a body of his on Earth, and his soul jumps between the two, right? So very much like this Avatar kind of an aspect. But because the body of his on Earth was copied onto Mars, that body is now his like perfected Earth body in a different atmosphere. So it had this Superman effect to it where he's like running and jumping and super strong because his body is made for Earth and the atmosphere is different. The gravity is different. And this version of Mars is like there's war-torn kingdoms, the alien races, and it's got this kind of like this whole adventure side to it. But then you kind of have this sneaking feeling that maybe the reason why Mars is dead is because everything goes wrong in the next 10 years. And you're like, this is going to go very badly. And then you had this like ancient alien gods system, and they were like super technology, but people think we're deities, and had all of these cool aspects of these cool designs, this cool lore. And the movie just didn't work.
Superman on Mars is everything you just told me. Sounds like a great movie. Human guy on Mars who realizes he has superhuman strength is great. That was not the movie that we were delivered. That is not, you know what I mean? Like, again, maybe something got lost in translation. Maybe they just do it again and really hit all of those things. And maybe, maybe it's the book is too big for one movie. I mean, I feel like that's true of some of these other stories as well. Spawn is too big for one movie. Maybe these ideas are too big for one movie, but it's like, that sounds great. That sounds like a really fun sci-fi adventure. Maybe that's also how you need to tell people, hey, the original from 1905, whenever this book was written from 1890, the original science fiction masterpiece, like let people know this was the blueprint for those things.
Yes. And mind you, I think the movie conveyed a lot of it well, and the cast was stacked. It had so many good actors in this movie. I think people forget how amazing the casting was of this movie. I mean, you had Taylor Kitsch, who played John Carter, but Willem Dafoe, Mark Strong, Bryan Cranston, like you had all these great actors in these supporting roles. And this movie was the world building movie. The sequel would have been what people wanted, but this was the world building movie. And maybe it just didn't hit people the right way. I don't know. But I remember seeing it with my wife, and I loved it in theaters, but the theater was pretty empty, which was kind of a bummer.
I'm thinking about our list right now. I think Bryan Cranston might be a secret sci-fi god. There's a couple, he's going to show up on another one of our movies, and I feel like he makes any of these sci-fi movies better. Any of these like genre movies pretty much better.
All right, so now we've got just two more. We just ran through 8. We got 2 more, and then we're going to wrap up. This one is going to be a very obvious one for people. Dread from 2012. And as you can see, who made it, there's too many cooks in the kitchen there. Lionsgate or Lions Entertainment, United International Pictures, DNA Films. The reason we probably never got a sequel is because there were too many production teams working on it and no one could agree on a damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
I say this is already a sequel. I don't know why this is on the list.
It's not a sequel, though. It's not a sequel.
This is the next installment of the Judge Dredd series. I don't understand. This is the remake of a Stallone movie. I feel like I thought this.
Yeah, you asked me, like, isn't this a sequel? I'm like, no. If anything, it's a prequel. But Carl Urban's decision to play Dredd without showing his face once was a cool thing for me, because, like, in the comics, you never see the Judge's face. Like, he was always like, you only saw like that. It was like if a Batman comic never showed Bruce Wayne. It was just that the whole time, and that's what we got.
Mm-hmm.
And they did such a cool job with making this as the most grounded as humanly possible, and not like the Stallone movie. There wasn't any flying cars. There wasn't any flying motorcycles. It was like, it felt like a dirty, grungy megacity. And yeah, it still had references to the mutants. It still had references to the psychic powers. And there was little Easter eggs here and there with like the crazy drugs and like the cloning. And there was comic book references out the butt throughout this whole movie. And they've been working on a sequel for better part of a decade now. But the fact that so many production teams were in bed with this movie is why we were never going to get a sequel. Just too many people were involved.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to agree, because it was a miracle that this one was made to begin with.
I like all of the, I feel it's funny that, everything that you just said, I don't know if this would have been the moniker, but in 2022, yes, I would like another cyberpunk movie. I would like Judge Dredd to go bash in all of those people's heads again. I feel like, again, it's a really great world that has all these great stuff. This movie was very clearly influenced by The Raid.
It basically was The Raid. What are we kidding? It was The Raid with Carl Urban as the main character.
So I don't know what other action movie tropes they want to reinterpret in a cyberpunk world, but they did some really great stuff with this movie, and I think that if that team has that passion, I think they should be allowed to do something else with it. And I will disagree with Taylor. I want more mutants. I want more dudes with
no, I didn't say I didn't want them. I want all of that.
I want all that cyberpunk stuff.
I think like they did a good job of making part 1 as grounded as humanly possible. Get weird with part 2. Give us the weird stuff.
For sure.
And I know that they even talked about how they wanted to follow some of the other storylines, like the Justice storyline, or even bring in Judge Death involved, and like get the weird stuff from the comics out there. Like I want all of that. But mind you, at the same time, we can argue that the first Judge Dredd movie was fantastically written, terribly directed and executed. It was very much like He-Man and the other movies that we brought up, that it was way ahead of its time, and it was a product of the time it was in. But you take that script and make it today, it'd be fantastic.
Is Rob Schneider the funny guy in that movie too?
That was the only one he's the funny guy in.
No, he's the funny guy in Demolition Man.
Oh, he is?
He is, Taylor. He's like the funny guy in like 4 movies in that time period. Yeah. Oh, he's the funny guy. Oh, Taylor. You know what movie needs? Yo, I apologize. I just thought about this movie now. You know what movie needs a sequel? Surf Ninjas. Surf Ninjas was a great. That movie was. There's a bunch of.
Put it on the list. We'll talk about it next time.
Okay.
That's a fun one. I want that to get trending again, because that movie's ridiculous.
We go back to Porto-san. They're getting
Patu-san.
Patu-san. Thank you. We go back to Patu-san.
That was a joke that the whole movie, when they're like, Patu-san, he's like, Porto-san, like the toilet? He's like, no, Patu-san.
That buff boy is still he's still a stuntman guy, right? The main kid?
Eddie Reyes?
Yeah.
Kino from Ninja Turtles?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He teaches MMA. He trains MMA UFC fighters.
Oh, great. Well, guess what?
He's even more intimidating now than he ever was.
His new son is now going to be the king of the island. He's got to go kick some butt. Let's make that movie.
I actually believe his daughter is in that Robert Rodriguez Netflix movie that just came out recently. Something We Can Be Heroes. I think that's the way it was called.
The fact that he has a daughter that knows how to kick butt is even better. His daughter, the princess, she now gets the powers, and she's got to take over the island. And that movie is also kind of like not a James Bond, an Indiana Jones. They go to find all the ancient stuff. She's got to go to a cave. She's got to do a ritual. Give me some Kid Kung Fu.
Yeah, Rob Schneider was in that.
He was. He's got the great line. He's got his best bit of the movie is the knives monologue. They go to the store. They don't have any knives. Do you have any knives? No, we don't have any knives to fight these bad guys. We have everything you want except for knives. That's the best of his jokes in the movie.
I remember the kid with the Game Gear that could like make things happen. Like
that
movie. I don't know.
And it's got the one voice actor guy is the police officer. I don't know his name. He was the rapper guy. He also was in Fern Gully. He was also in Mulan. I forget his name, but he's got that deep voice guy. Do the wow thing. That guy's in that movie. He's great in that movie too.
Going low.
Yeah, there he is.
Like, can we just like appreciate Leslie Nielsen being Leslie Nielsen in that movie? Like,
great.
Good. Anyways, we sidetracked pretty hardcore on that one.
Yeah, what movie were we talking about?
Dredd.
Oh yeah, Dredd.
Dredd to Surf Ninjas. That's how we went.
It's a great universe. Passionate people want to do it. They should be allowed to do it.
All right. Our final movie, and this is one that I personally loved, and I know you're going to argue with me about it, but I don't care. Power Rangers 2017. Power Rangers, another Bryan Cranston movie. Bryan Cranston as Zordon was the most inspired casting of all time. They gave us a rich backstory. They did some fantastic design work with Weta for like just the weirdness of the Power Rangers. My issue, I think, with the movie was that the director didn't get his story put in. So like you lost like a half an hour of actual plot details. And the fact when they finally became the Power Rangers, it was like in the last 20 minutes of the 2-hour movie, like because it was all build up toward that. But they set up a sequel with hints at Lord Zed and Tommy the Green Ranger. Like we could have had the better sequel that would have appeased everybody, but it just didn't resonate with people. It was one of those movies, I think it didn't know who its audience was because it was clearly giving us a reboot of the original show, and it was showing us a lot of this teenage angst, a lot of this like modern day teenager issues, but the modern day teenagers that connect with those issues never saw the original show. And the fans of the original show don't give a crap about those issues because they're now in their 30s. So it was like the balance was weird. But every cast member on that show now is doing other great things. Becky G, who's the Yellow Ranger, she blew up as a Latina pop star. Dacre Montgomery, who was like Jason, is like the bad guy in Stranger Things for like the last 2 seasons. And like, let's see, Ludi Lin as Liu Kang,
Mortal
Kombat, and he was also like one of the bad guys in Aquaman. And then you had what's the girl, the Pink Ranger? What was her name? I'm not googling it. So, she played Jasmine in the Aladdin movies.
Aladdin, yeah.
I remember not liking that movie and picking it apart as well. But funny enough, on another podcast, I was pitching what if they did a Planeteer? What if they did a Captain Planet movie?
Yeah.
And halfway through giving that pitch, I basically just casted that. I was like, oh, we'll get that funny blonde lady from Pitch Perfect. She'll be the woman. I was like, oh, I'm just talking about Power Rangers 2017.
Yeah, you literally fan casted Power Rangers 17 into a Captain Planet movie.
100% I did. And when I thought about it like that, you know what? I like, there was a lot of things they did. I like that the Power Rangers are back. They went more alien, which is fine. I think that people forget what's cool about Power Rangers. It is the suits. It is the action sequences. It is the fighting robots. Listen, I say we run away from all of that and just go straight to Power Rangers Neo. There is a galactic Earth gets invaded by aliens. They are given suits with these symbols on it, and then we see them go on a 90-minute mission of fighting dudes and making tough choices and pulling laser guns. I think we get away from angsty teenagers as fast as possible and figure out a way to keep these things that we are nostalgic for, but like completely redesign Lord Zed. Like, let's do something else with these properties, and let's just get to the fun and the meat and potatoes of these people being the characters. Because you're right, they didn't know who their audience was. The movie starts with a bestiality joke within like 2 minutes of the movie, and you're like, oh, I guess this is for kids. And then they spend a lot of time on a Krispy Kreme's donut. So I would love for them to wink at parents, but know who their audience is. And whether you want to age them up or age them down, just make it feel like it's in that world. Because this movie felt somewhere between Michael Bay's Transformers and like a miniseries. Like, it just didn't get its solid footing there.
Yeah. And I think they had some really cool ideas. And like I said, there was a lot of stuff that they took out. There was a whole subplot that was missing from the movie about Jason and the power sword, and essentially the power sword was like Excalibur, like it would only choose the leader if it was chosen. So the moment when it finally came out, that was supposed to be this big triumphant, like now he's a leader, but they took all of that out. So when he pulls the sword out, you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's
and then
that
like when
sword,
he turns,
that's that sword he's always had access to.
you're like,
yeah.
Why does it matter? Like, what are you giving the sword back for? What's so important about the sword? But there's a whole plot line about the sword. But there was so much that they just, I don't know. I feel like maybe it was the poor editing at the end, the fact that he wanted to make a very different movie. I don't know what it was, but it didn't know its audience, and it would have definitely shined in the sequel if having them be the Rangers from moment one and then going that way.
100%. And if you guys want to know, guys and gals out there, if you want to know what like a good Power Rangers movie could be, basically the first Pacific Rim movie. Like, they didn't have fights outside of the bots, but all of that stuff where we're seeing cockpit shots, that's Power Rangers. I mean, you know what I mean? And we got all of that stuff very sparingly. That should be the movie. The movie should open with all of them in their cockpits being like, man, I'm super bored. What are we going to do? And it's like, we have to patrol. Zordon said we have to stay here. Nah, let's get out of here. Like, all of that fun. We didn't get any of that stuff. We got bullying and Krispy Kreme donuts and small town life in Oregon. And it was like, I like the Power Ranger world. Let's find one angle of it and really explore it to its fullest.
Yeah. But I think on that note, that was our 10 films that we think that should have gotten a sequel. And maybe in a sense that if they don't get a sequel, maybe just a complete rehashing, just with the same ideas and the same script, but just do it better because of better technology. I don't know. But again,
as we prepared for this list, it's so funny that you were right that we could do more. When he said we could do more, I was like, no way. And I've already written down like 4 more movies I'd like to see. But some honorable mentions, if this was a year ago, I would have Willow 2. I would have wanted another Willow movie. We're now getting a miniseries. There is a number of Jet Li movies that he's got a great movie where he's a dog, where he like fights, he like is breaking his programming. I'd love to see that guy go break other people's programming and go to other underground fight rings and be like, you don't have to be a dog anymore. Bah! I'd love to see that.
I think just your pitch of explaining what that is, I think people are thinking you're actually talking about a dog when we're talking about the movie Unleashed with Morgan Freeman.
It's called Unleashed. No, the second movie is called Dog.
No, where in Unleashed, they call him Dog, but he's basically just a manslave. Like, it's not even like he's not a physical dog.
He has to fight. He fights for the guy from. He fights for the British guy from Roger Rabbit. He's like, "You're my dog."
Bob Hoskins.
Bob Hoskins. He's like, "You got to fight out there." That movie is so weird.
Like that movie, when we saw that in theaters, I remember we saw that in theaters the first time in high school, and I came out of that movie. I'm like, man, Bob Hoskins would be such a great Penguin. And like that was just my mind was like, he reminded me of like the early 2000s gangster Penguin. And I was like, that's what I want in a Batman movie. I want Bob Hoskins from Unleashed just dropped into another movie.
Kung Fu Hustle 2 was announced today. So we're going to get a follow-up to that movie. That's a great movie. a movie that I didn't pitch for this list because I don't think it needs to exist, but I'm going to let you know that there is something in the social zeitgeist. I think Goonies 2 might start getting talked about now that what's his name has returned to acting from the guy who came back, and now that everything that movie's coming back. Listen, your two mains of that movie have become huge celebrities. You now have a third one. I feel that there is Goonies vibes in the air right now, and I don't know where those are coming from, but I feel like if those people are enacting again, their kids got to go on an adventure, and I don't know where the adventure goes, but it goes somewhere.
Yep. I mean, and I would just like to see Josh Brolin in a family movie and not being Thanos or like a gruff cowboy like he is in The Outer Range, which is an amazing show, by the way. If you haven't watched it, it's weird. It's like Twin Peaks and Yellowstone had a baby.
Yeah, I'm totally down for that. He's so gruff. I would love to see him be silly again. I'd love to see those characters in a new place. Listen, they're not being foreclosed on. They all moved to a nice place. They all are still friends. And let's see another pirate adventure. Man, that movie's good. Man, that movie's so fun.
So good. But yeah, so let's bring it up to like the comments here. Let's see. Anyone wants to throw something in, we'll definitely bring some stuff up. If not, we can just kind of wrap it up. But I definitely I had a few others that I wanted to talk about, like Real Steel with Hugh Jackman was a fun movie. It's getting a sequel now. So I've heard some things about the sequel that apparently I'm not allowed to share because he told me about it. And it's like, wait, if you're doing a show about it, don't talk about this. So I'm excited for it.
Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Keep it secret. Yep. Keep it safe.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many that we just definitely loved. But it seems like the comments are a lot of just talking about what we already talked about and nothing new. So let's head there. Let's wrap it up. Just want to say thank you to everyone who joined us today and for indulged us as we geeked out about 10 movies that we loved. And I argued with Michael about why I love them and if he doesn't. And then thank you, everyone. You can support our channel on Patreon, patreon.com/theculturednerd. Since our last show and to this one, we gained a handful of new supporters. So we'll throw them up here. We went from, on our first show, having like 3 supporters to like 9 now. So thank you, everyone, for helping us do what we're doing. We're now, I think I mentioned this last time, we are now officially breaking even. So we can now get fun with now that we've paid for everything, we can now expand and get better at things. So thank you, everyone, for supporting us.
Taylor has also done Taylor did some research for us. The After Dark show, we are officially making it a Patreon only show.
Yes. We discovered for the podcast After Dark show that we want to do, where we just basically unfiltered, uncensored, and just talking all the stuff that we want to talk. There is no way to have a show that's unlisted and unshareable, but only set for subscribers on all these platforms. They just won't allow it. It's like some weird little detail. So since they won't let us do what we want to do with it, we'll just do it as a Patreon show and just give it to our supporters that way. So we are going to record some shows for this. We're going to be unfiltered and ridiculous and lots of swearing, lots of jokes that are just very crass and terrible. And we will do that there. And if you want to support us and listen to it, and if you hate us, then you can unsupport us. But it's going to be a lot of fun just having us talk about all the horrible things that are in our heads that we have to filter for these shows. But thank you again for joining us. You can, if you're on the TV, you can scan that QR code, find our support link, and just enjoy everything that we do. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for your movie ideas. We'll see you very soon.
Adios, guys.